Hello, geometry kiddos. Just to start off with a little bit of indirect logic here and see if you guys can figure this out. So I am thinking of a state, a U.S. state. I became a state in 1772. I was the 15th state added in, so the 15th state. Mrs. Oppold has lived here. Some of you are like, who is Mrs. Oppold? Well, she is a high school teacher a math teacher at the high school. Daniel Boone settled here. Are you narrowing in on a state? Elvis sang about the rain here. So any of you Elvis fans out there? Abe Lincoln was born here. So was Cassius Clay. I am the horse racing capital of the U.S. What state am I? So this is Kentucky. All right, what we're getting in today is lesson 6-6, which is going to be inequalities in two different triangles. Inequalities in two triangles. And anyone know what this picture is? This is a hinge, and sometimes we call this the hinge theorem, what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so just as a quick review, write the angles in order from smallest to largest. So smallest. So we have to pick 6 is the smallest across. So angle X is going to be the smallest. And then your middle is going to be angle Z, leaving angle Y to be the largest. All right, the lengths of two sides of a triangle are 12 and 9. Find the range of possibilities. So X is going to be between what two numbers? So we take 12 minus 9 and get 3, and 12 plus 9 and get 21. So the range of numbers for the third side is between 3 and 21. All right, make a conjecture here. So is there anything that we could possibly think would happen? Well, let's just here for an instance, presume that this is a 60-degree angle. So we have a side marked 7 and 7, congruent sides, 60-degree angle and an 8. So wouldn't we say that these two triangles are now congruent by side angle side? So if the two triangles are congruent by side angle side, doesn't that make X equal to Y because of corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent? Okay, so now let's go back to what it really is saying, and that this is a 50-degree angle. So now just take your hand and go from a 60-degree to a 50-degree. And what happens when you go from 60 degrees and you make that angle now 50 degrees, what happens to your fingertips on the other end? Okay, do your fingertips get closer? So is X going to be smaller or less than Y? Isn't X going to be smaller because X is across from the 50-degree angle and Y is across from the 60-degree angle? So if you make a hinge kind of with your hands, your fingertips, putting your heels of your hands together and look at a 60-degree angle, and as you make that go 50, it makes your fingertips get closer. Now that only works because 7 is congruent to 7 and 8 is congruent to 8. So we know those two sides are congruent. So we start with the possibility of them being congruent by side angle side. Then we now can make a comparison. All right, so we've got 11, 12, 13, nothings here. So we cannot make any kind of conjecture about X and Y because we don't have any corresponding parts that are congruent. Okay, so if we're given that two sides of a triangle, you can see that AB is congruent to DE, and AE is congruent to DF, because those two sides are congruent, we can make a comparison from this angle to the opposite side. Okay, and we make a comparison if angle A is bigger, then BC is bigger. If angle D is bigger, then EF is bigger. Okay, likewise, we also have the converse. Okay, so if we know this side GH is bigger, if GH is bigger than LK, we can now conclude that angle J is bigger than angle M. So this is using the converse. All right, which angles can be compared? So let's see what we've got going on here, okay? We've got a 4 congruent to 4, and then this side in between. So we know for sure we've got the two sides. Okay, so now we look at this angle 1 and 7, and we look at angle 4 and 6. Okay, so what angles can be compared? Angle 1 and angle 4. Which angle's greater? Well, 7 is bigger than 6, so angle 1 is going to be bigger than angle 4. Why? This is because of the side angle side hinge theorem. Okay, side angle side hinge theorem. Because we have our two sides and then we're making a comparison about these angles. This is actually the converse of that, because we're looking at the sides and then we're making a, so this is the converse. All right, let's look at another example here. All right, which sides can be compared? Okay, so we've got a 7 and a 7, and they have this in between. So we've got the side angle side hinge theorem going on. So now if this is 82 degrees, then we can do 180 minus 82. And what we're left with here is 98. So we know that this is a 98-degree angle. And because 98 is bigger, we're going to compare EF and FG. FG is greater. Why? Because 98 degrees is greater than 82 degrees. So this is the side angle side hinge theorem. All right, find the range of values for Z. All right, so first of all, we have to make sure we can make a comparison. So we've got a side and this side. Okay, so we do have the side angle side. And then we know this is 90 degrees, and they tell us this is 120 degrees. So 120 is bigger than 90. 120 is bigger than 90. So Z plus 23 is bigger than 3Z plus 9. All right, I'm going to subtract Z from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. So 23 minus 9 is 14, is greater than 2Z divided by 2. So 7 is greater than X. So any number less than 7. Okay, so let's just put in here 3. If we put in 3 in here, that will work. So put in a 3 and a 3. 26 is bigger than, what do we have? 9 plus 9, 18. Okay, so that works. So let's try another number. Let's just put in a negative 5. So negative 5 and a negative 5. So negative 5 plus 23 is what? 18. And so we have negative 15 plus 9. That's a negative 6. Does that make sense for this side to be negative 6? Probably not. So we need an answer here so that it's something is less than x is less than 7. We need a lower boundary here. So what is that lower boundary going to be? Because we know we can't put in a -5 because we got out a -6. Okay, so what number can we put in here? Well, what we do is we take this z plus 23, and that has to be bigger than 0. Doesn't the length of any side have to be bigger than 0? So z has to be greater than -23. And then we also have to set it up where we set up 3z plus 9 has to be greater than 0. So 3z is greater than -9, and z is greater than -3. Now, which one of these is most restrictive? That gives us the smaller amount of numbers. Okay, and what this means is you can see that -5 works for this one, but -5 does not work for this one. So this one's more restrictive. It has less numbers. So we're going to use the -3. So any value here between -3 and 7 will work. And you always have to kind of pay attention when you're going down into those negative numbers when we're talking about lengths of things. If it's bigger than something, then we probably don't have to worry about it. But if x is going to be less than a number, then you have to worry about getting that smaller boundary. And that's why it says a range of numbers, because it's between -3 and 7. Okay, so a lot of your homework today is going to say stuff about comparing things. Okay, all right, let's see if we can figure out this next one. 2 groups of hikers leave at the same camp heading in opposite directions. They both go 2 miles. Okay, one goes east and one goes west. So this goes 2 miles east, and then it turns north 45 degrees towards the west. So it turns north and then 45 degrees. So we have an angle in here, and that's 1.2. The other group goes 2 miles, and it heads due west, then turns south 60, so south, but then goes 60 degrees. Okay, so this angle is coming in, so this is going to be 45 degrees in here, whereas this one is going to be 90 plus 60. So which one is going to be further away from where we started? So in this case, it looks like group B is going to be further away. All right, so on your homework today, they're going to be talking about comparing. So when you are comparing 2 different things, and this is the hardest thing on the directions for this chapter 6 test, is when you're talking about making a comparison. Okay, when we have a triangle here and we've got this side, so let's say this is 7, and they've got this side. If this is a 30-degree angle and this is a 50-degree angle, what can we say? If this is congruent and these are 7, this 50 degrees is bigger than this 30. So AB is going to have to be bigger than BC. That is your comparison statement. AB is bigger than BC. All right, so we're talking about the hinge theorem and making some comparison statements, and then making sure that when you do that, that they fit within the boundary and you get your range. All right, good luck on your homework.